Hi everyone, now if you're like me, you'll have been searching for the dream rig setup for your smartphone filmmaking, especially if you're into narrative filmmaking. Well, I just found my dream rig setup and I'm about to share it with you right now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my dream rig setup for my iPhone 12. I'm using the Beastgrip Pro rig, the small rig speciality of the Weebill S handle, and the Weebill S hybrid gimbal itself. This is the dream rig that I love to use and I will be using for my films in the future. Now let me show you how I set this up piece by piece to get the best balance. Now when you're using a regular smartphone gimbal, it's a lot easier to just get it locked, loaded, balanced and ready to go within seconds, because you're just putting the phone on the clamp basically, lining up a little bit whilst the gimbal's turned off and it's done. But with a hybrid gimbal like a Weebill S, it's slightly more complicated and there's a few little bells and whistles you need to sort out before it's balanced, and it does take longer than a regular gimbal for smartphones. Also, if you're using a rig like the Beastgrip Pro rig, then that will take time as well to attach. And to do that, I'll be using just a coin so I can attach the screw that's underneath the release plate, which is here, you can see moving. So I have to put that on top and then screw that on with the coin. So it takes a bit longer as well. I can set up my Osmo Mobile 3 literally in about 20 seconds. So let's see how long it takes to set this up. Putting on the tripod first, it comes with the Weebill S. Gonna put on now the release plate, which will have the Beastgrip Pro rig attached, and I'm using a coin to do that. So even though we've got a high-tech gimbal, it's always worth having a few simple accessories to help yourself out, like a coin. Tighten that on nice and tight there. I have tried to use the Ulanzi U-Rig Pro with this initially, but it was way too wide for the gimbal. It kept bashing into the arm, it just wouldn't fit on there. So the Beastgrip Pro rig, attaching that, sorting out the axes, your pan, your tilt, your rotate as well. So balancing all that out together can take a little bit of time, but once you've got it set up, it is well worth it. And of course, with the Beastgrip Pro rig clamp, it fits in really nice and easily. Now that's the setup, but what about charging time for the batteries? The lights start off red on this docking port for the batteries, and it takes about 2.5 hours to charge, and you'll get up to 12 hours of usage out of this, and the lights go blue when they're fully charged. Okay, so there's a few different modes on this Weebill S gimbal. So we're gonna start off with pan follow, and pan follow, as you can imagine, follows your pan movement side to side. So it's really useful for that, very simple moves. And then if you press the FN button on the side, you've got go mode, and go mode is sort of fast action kind of thing. Okay, so we're on go mode now with the Weebill S. So what I'm gonna do using Filmmaker Pro's Double Take is you can see me whilst I'm using this to create a bit of an action scene point of view if you're like, or you could have someone obviously being followed by the camera with an OTS, that kind of thing, and create a little action scene. So, let's go. So right now, look to the right, quick spin, look to the left, quick spin. We're gonna go down here. Why am I doing this? I'm so unfit. And it can really add a lot to an action sequence. Sideways, can look back, then look forward, to the side, and back again. And it looks really cool. Obviously, I wouldn't be in the shot normally, but that's the end of the action scene. The go mode on the Weebill S is really good, very responsive, very intuitive, very quick. I find it a lot more responsive in a smooth way than my Osmo Mobile 3. The stream setup truly is a dream. Where's Tom Cruise when you need him? If you bring the button from PF down to L so it's locked, you then got it locked the whole way through. So whatever you do with the gimbal, this will stay locked. So that can be very handy if you want to follow someone just sideways, or maybe you do some low movements to high and you want to keep that phone in exactly the same place. It's really helpful for that. And if you press V, it turns this into vortex mode. And this is where it gets really interesting. So you can start to do really crazy stuff with it and get some vortex shots that you wouldn't be able to get with most smartphone gimbals, and certainly not with a rig on top. And if you want to add a microphone, lights, that kind of thing, this is where it really comes into its own, this gimbal, because you can start to do things that you just cannot do with a smartphone gimbal, with a microphone on top, with a lens, with a filter, all that kind of stuff. This bears the weight of everything, and it can still do every mode. Now, one of my favorite modes with a Weebill S with this configuration is an underslung mode. Now what that is in pan follow, you simply bring the handle above the phone. and all of a sudden you can get really nice, really smooth, low shots without any hassle. With a smartphone gimbal you can do this, but it's much easier with a hybrid gimbal because it bears the weight of everything you need, and it's not going to sort of wear away the gears that you get with a smartphone gimbal like an Osmo, a Zine Smooth, anything like that. Whereas with this, it can just take everything and like an absolute beast. You've also got point of view mode. That's where you tilt the gimbal to its side, left or right, and the camera, the gimbal follows with that. So that way you can get some really nice either B-roll shots or some quite dynamic shots for a film that's kind of off the cuff and quite unusual, and it'll give you a different perspective as well. Now, one of the things that I love about the Weebill S and the Beastgrip Pro with the small rig handle is that it gives you full control. With a smartphone gimbal, I never really feel like I'm in full control of the footage, and I often rely on post-stabilization. Whereas with this, I know I'm gonna get smooth footage no matter what, and I can feel like I'm really in control of the whole gimbal, and the gimbal hasn't really got control of me. Now, what's really cool about this gimbal is even when you're not using go mode, you can get really amazing smooth footage when you're running. This is me legging it down the road. Not full pace, but it's not even a jog, it's still very, very fast run. And you can see how smooth these shots are. I found it almost smoother when I was walking. And you can get really cool action shots as well, so you're ducking low behind cars, running along, you want to come back across the road, you're chasing someone, making an interesting scene. It still stays really, really smooth. And even when you run across the road like this, you duck low, you go along the ground, so you're going almost underslung, and then you're coming across the car, up above the car, across the road, and that whole sequence is no effort at all, it's really smooth. Something else I wanted to use as well whilst I was doing underslung mode was use Filmmaker Remote. If you don't know what that is, I have a tutorial on that, and it's basically where you can use a separate iOS device, or if you've got an Android device, you can use another Android device, and you can see with your secondary device what your camera is doing and what you're seeing. So for example, when it's underslung mode, I can see all the shots I'm getting with this. Now with the small rig handle, it's a really, really chunky, beefy bit of kit that you attach to this rig. Now you don't need it, you can use the tripod that comes below the gimbal itself and attach it there if you want to. But I got this from eBay actually, and it came with the gimbal. So I found it really, really helpful to have that. And it's got a number of 1/4" threads as well, so you can attach a microphone out of that kind of thing, or a lighting system, or a second monitor if you want to do that with a secondary phone. And you've got a screw in the middle and two sort of knobs that stick out each side of that. And those little knobs go into, goes into that. And then the central screw just goes straight in the middle, and you lock it on, and that metal wheel there at the bottom, that tightens, and you get a really nice lock on for that. And it doesn't matter what kind of actions you're providing with your gimbal, it will stay tight. Now in terms of the combined weight, when I've got my Rode Wireless Go, an ND filter, my phone, the Beastgrip Pro rig, the small rig handle as well here that's attached to the back of the Weebill S, it weighs 2.574 kilograms, so over 2,500 grams. So that's a really hefty, chunky gimbal, but it really does work really well. And when you've got a good weight on there as well, you won't even notice it. So the DJI OM5, you're looking at a smartphone gimbal to compare. The weight is 290 grams, the payload is 290 grams, so that's enough for a phone, perhaps an ND filter as well. And with the Smooth 5, the Zine Smooth 5 that's come out recently, excellent gimbal, it looks really good. The weight is 440 grams, the payload is 300 grams. So you might be able to attach a small lens, but you certainly couldn't start attaching ND and a lens and a microphone. It just wouldn't work, and even if it did at first, it would wear the gears down overall. And with the Weebill S, it holds 3,500 grams. It's meant for DSLR cameras as well, so whatever you put on this, it's going to handle it like an absolute dream, and that is why it's my dream rig setup. And with YouTubers, obviously, a lot of people, when they're doing B-roll shots, that kind of stuff, they're filming at 60 frames per second, 120 frames per second, which makes it 10 times easier to get smooth shots with a smartphone gimbal. Now with this, you don't have to do any of that. You can film at 24 frames per second, as I've shown you in running shots, that kind of stuff, and you'll still get smooth footage out of this gimbal. Now you can get obviously different hybrid gimbals as well, not this one necessarily, but if you want to get one, I'd highly recommend getting this over a smartphone gimbal, especially if you want to add stuff to a rig and a setup and have it all on one gimbal, rather than having to kind of half-ass and kind of counterbalance systems to try and balance out lenses on a smartphone gimbal like the Osmo Mobile 3 that I have. So super impressed with this, and I highly recommend, if you can afford one, to get one of these, because honestly the difference between this and a smartphone gimbal is night and day. So guys, let me know in the comments down below what you thought of this dream rig setup. What would you change about it to make it your dream rig setup? And also hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It really helps this channel grow. I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye bye.